Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
And you're wondering what I'm doing here. I'm just playing background music. We do a little dancing beforehand to liven up and get people limbered up for the Storytelling Festival.
Good. You gonna play a little something?
Sure.
For us? Okay. Thank you very much, Peter.
Cheers. Take care.
You too.
Are we not lucky to be here together tonight? You have to be sitting in the front and looking back and seeing this sea of glowing faces enjoying this presentation. Our next teller is Tom Lee. Tom has been telling stories for a long time now. He's one of those glorious, magical beings who continue to tell myths and folk tales, keeping them alive for children and for adults and for future generations. He has a huge repertoire of folk tales that he tells, stories that he's researched and crafted for contemporary audiences. I was very excited to see that Tom's going to be telling this October in Jonesboro, and it amused me that he's appearing under the rubric of a new voice. Well, he's a new voice there because it's his first time telling there. But for those of us from this part of the world, for those of us who've traveled out of our way on numerous occasions to hear Tom, he's not a new voice. He is a welcome and always appreciated voice. And I hope you'll join me in welcoming him here tonight.
Mary Jo! Where have you been all my life? You say Mary Jo, and I think of a t-shirt and a guitar. I'm sorry, it's just what comes to mind. Did you rock that set or what? That was amazing. There's a Cinderella thing going on with the dress and the shoes. And it's incredible. But stay this way, okay? You don't have to change back at midnight. It's delightful to be here. Thank you so much, Rita, for that lovely introduction. And I want to kind of be in the family tonight. I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to tell? And some people practice, you know. But I wanted to invoke an absent friend tonight. I bought a bow tie today at Nordstrom's, and you'll be seeing it tomorrow. Because I have a reputation to uphold here at the Connecticut Storytelling Festival. Is Lot here? No? Okay, we'll see if Lot wears a bow tie tomorrow. We'll get to the bottom of that. But the story that came to mind as I was buying this was about our dear and absent friend, Kate McClelland, who I got into the habit of wearing bow ties at the festival. And I broke a habit, and I brought my boyfriend one year. And Kate went into the ladies' room with Lorna, and I always wonder, why do they go in pairs? They go in pairs so they can talk about you. And Lorna told me this story later. She said, well, you know, I was in the ladies' room with Kate, and her voice came over the transom, and she said, well, what do you think of Tom's bow? And I said, well, I like his bow. I like all Tom's bows. Kate said, you like all his bows? I said, yeah, every time I see him, he's got a new bow. So, tomorrow I will have a new bow. A brand new bow. So, you heard it here first. But the other story that I think it's time to share this story. I want this story to become folkloric among the Connecticut storytelling community. I had the great honor of telling a story at Kate's memorial service in a church filled with 500 children's librarians. Okay? 500 children's librarians in a church. And Brian Selznick, the author of The Invention of Hugo Cabret, the recently Pulitzer Prize winning author, was there. And he spoke. And I said that Barack Obama and the Pope could have been at the door, and they would have had to get in line with these librarians. And he told a story at Kate's funeral, and I was so moved by it. And I want you to hear it, and I want you to retell it. I want it to become part of our communal folklore. He got the paper for the city in which Kate had died, and he was reading the events of the day. And he read a story in which a public bus, pulled up in front of a library, the public library. And a woman climbed off the bus, staggered into the library, 9 months and 3 days pregnant. And she said, could you help me? I think I'm about to have a baby. And the librarians all gathered together and put the woman on the floor, and I don't know if they went to the reference section or not, but they delivered that child. On the same day that we lost Kate, a child was born in the library. And Brian said he couldn't think of a better place or better people to welcome a child into the world. And 500 librarians and I were sobbing our eyes out in the church. And he milked it for a moment, and then he said, the article didn't say if the baby was, you know, overdue. Please tell that story sometime between now and the next Connecticut Storytelling Festival. I want it to become our folktale. I want it to go on forward. So once upon a time, and such a time there was. It was not your time, and it was not my time. It was not anyone's time. It was once upon a time. If I had been there then, I could not be here now. And if I am here now, I cannot have been there then. And if I had been there then, and here now, the story would be a different story. Or the story would be no story at all. But I am here now, and this is the story. Two sisters lived together in a little house with their mother. Two sisters in a family that was beyond dysfunctional. They needed another word. The two sisters were as opposite as two sisters can be in every way. One was kind and gentle. The other was cruel and rough. One was sweet. The other was sour. One was, tell me. Pretty. The other was ugly. Inside, outside, I don't know. She was an ugly person. But the strange thing, that happens all the time. I mean, you're sitting there thinking, this is a story? I know about that. But the strange thing was the mother's behavior to her children. She was always kind to the cruel girl. But then she would somehow manage to turn and always be cruel to the kind girl. And no matter how kind the kind girl was, the mother only became crueler to her. Think about those family dynamics. Try to plot that out in your mind. The dinner table would have been enough to give you a headache. But there they were, the three of them. And the older the beautiful girl became, the kinder and the sweeter she was, the angrier and the sourer her mother became. And she would try to please her mother, and her mother would simply go into a rage at this kindness, until the one thought that filled this woman's mind was if her daughter would simply go away and never return. And she thought, and she knew the child was so obliging and so good and so kind, she would do whatever she was told. So she came to her one day and she said, "There's something I would like you to do." And the girl said, "Oh, certainly, Mother, I'm happy to help. What can I do?" "I'll tell you. I want you to bring water to the house." "Oh, well, I'll just go. I haven't finished." "I want you to bring water from the well at the end of the world." "The well at the end of the world? But it'll be a long trip, Mother, but I haven't finished. I want you to bring well from the water at the end of the world, and I want you to take it in this basket." And the girl looked at the basket, woven loosely, nothing but holes and a bit of straw. She said, "Mother, if I fill the basket with water, it will surely just drain out." "Don't come home until the basket is full." And she had to do it. She was just that way. She had to obey. She had to try and help. And she said, "It's an awfully long journey, Mother. If I wouldn't be too much trouble, something perhaps to eat." "Ah, greedy child, you always want something. A crust of bread." "No, half a crust will do for you." "A glass of water?" "No. Half a glass, I think, is more than enough. There you are. Don't come back until the basket is full." And she did. She went. She obliged. She helped out. She said, "Sure, I'll do it. Why not?" And she left the little house and she traveled the end of the world. It's far. It's really farther than far. It's further than I could tell you. It's twice as far as you could tell me. However far you're thinking right now, it's farther than that. No, keep going. No, you're going. And she came to a place where many characters and many stories have come to this place. It's a very important place to get to if you can find the way. It was the middle of no place. Have you been there? I have. The middle of no place. It's an interesting place to be. And in this place, this no place, at the side of the path, there was a woman sitting there, an old woman. Old. Just watching her walk along. And as she came along, the woman said, "Oh, good afternoon, child. Where do you travel so far from home?" And the girl said, "Oh, pardon me, ma'am, I didn't see you there. How do you do? Good day. It's nice to see a stranger on the road. Nice to have a little company. Where am I traveling? Well, you might not believe me if I tell you. I'm going to the well at the end of the world. Long journey for one so young. What will you do if you come to such a place?" "Oh, well, that's a stranger tale yet. I have to fill this basket with water." "Fill a basket with water? And who has sent you on this journey, child?" "My mother." "I see. Have a seat." And the girl said, "Well, I was just going to have a little snack. I don't have much. I've only got this crust of bread. It's kind of dry. And I only have this half a glass of water." And she did. She had it right there in her jacket pocket. But if you're hungry, I would share it with you." And the woman said, "Oh, well, child, I haven't eaten in some time." So they took that little dry crust and they broke it in half and they drank the glass of water. And it was a funny thing about that crust of bread, though. It was sweet. It tasted so good. And she just kept breaking off little pieces and little pieces and little pieces. And it just went on forever. And the two of them ate and drank and they laughed and they chatted about one thing and another. Maybe they sang French songs. I don't know. But the girl stood up and she said, well, it's been lovely to chat with you, but I really must go. It's a long way. And the woman said, child, when you come to the end of the world, you will find a hedge of thorns, sharp and piercing, twisted, tangled, tied into knots, a hedge that no one can pass through unless they know just what to say. Hold up your hands, my child, and say, hedge, by the power of the woman of the road, open for me. Then, child, see what you see. And the girl said, oh, well, I'll try to remember that. Thank you, she said, and she started down the road and thought perhaps she should just say one more kind word, and she turned around, and you'll never guess. She had disappeared. Guess. She had disappeared. Is this your first time at the rodeo? I think not. The woman was gone, but she continued on her journey, not too far, until she came to the end of the world. Have you been there? With a hedge, thorns, sharp and piercing, twisted and tangled, tied into knots, and the girl said, how can I? Of course, I remember. Do you remember? Hedge, by the power of the woman of the road, open for me. And sure enough, the hedge began to untwist and untangle and untie, and it spread itself open, and the girl passed through, and she came to the end of the world. Huh. It's a nice place, really. When you got there, and there was a tree that had been growing, they say, since the beginning of the world. And the tree arched over a well, an old stone well, covered with moss, thick green moss on the stones. And the girl, I really didn't know I was going to tell this one. I brought the chair up at the beginning. She sat down at the edge of the well. It's kind of key to the story. And she dipped her feet, took her shoes off, dipped her feet into the water of the well. Felt good. All that walking. And she just stared down into the waters of the well, dark and deep, thinking of nothing. Thinking not of her mother, not of her basket, not of the journey home, just nothing at all, just staring down into the well. But there was something down there. There was something in the well. And she couldn't make it out at all. At first it was coming, it was dark, it was coming up. Bloop. 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 It was a head. It was a head. This is a Tom Lee story. Lots of decapitation. There will be no infanticide this evening. But it was a head. And it floated on the surface of the water. And it stared at the girl. It smiled at her. It spoke to her. Wash me! Comb me. Lay me down softly. Lay me down on the grass to dry, so I may look pretty if someone comes by. A head. Okay. It's a head. It's a head in a well. I came, I stuck my feet in the well, it's a head. I will wash you. Dear, it seems only reasonable after all. I will wash you, dear head. And she did. She took the head and she washed the face and she washed the cheeks and she washed behind the ears. Very important to them. And she took her own comb from her hair and she combed out the hair on the head's head. She combed. The one that was long and flowing. She put it down in the grass, just out of the shade of the tree. And the head smiled up, and she smiled back at it. Lovely. And she put her feet back. Ooh, oh, nice. Nice. And she just stared down in the water, well, not really thinking about anything. Oh, there was something else down there. She couldn't make it was something. It was it was another head, and it floated on the surface of the water, and it stared at the girl, and it smiled at her, and it spoke to her. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly, lay me down on the grass to dry, so I may look pretty if someone comes by. And the girl thought to herself, well, if I do that for that one and I don't do for this one's going to get mad at that one. And I will wash you, dear head. And she took the head and she washed the face and she washed the cheeks and she washed behind the ears because, and she took her own comb from her hair and she combed out the hair from the head. And she put it down beside the first, and the two heads smiled up at her and she just smiled back. Very lovely, yes. She put her feet back in the It was good. It felt good. And she was just, oh, Jesus. And it was, yes, go ahead. Yeah, it was another head. Yeah, another head. And wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. It was a head. And it, wash me. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Yes, you are! Yes! This usually takes... Okay. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly, lay me down on the grass to dry, so I may look pretty if someone comes by. She said, well, I'm getting good at this. Little rinse and set, is that what it'll be? Certainly, lovely. Wash the face, wash the cheek, behind the ear, took her own comb from her hair on the head. Lovely. Oh, you look great. Put it up on Facebook. Did she put her feet in the well one more time? Did she know she was in a story? Probably not going to be more than 3 heads, right? No, that was it. 3 heads in the well. Okay. That meant it was time to fill the basket. She knew as soon as her mother had told her. She knew the minute she left the house, fill a basket with water. She knew why she had asked her. She knew what it meant. But she had to try, so she took the basket and she plunged it down into the water and she pulled it up. But as soon as she did, she tried again and she pulled it up. And she tried again, and she tried again, and again, and again, and again. But she knew it couldn't be done. She knew what it meant. Do not come home until the basket is filled with water. And the water poured and poured and poured. And did she weep? Did she weep? How could she not weep to stand there and fill a basket with water? But the 3 heads were watching her. And they spoke to her. Stop it with moss, daub it with clay, and so you shall carry the water away. What? Stop it, moss. Moss? Where was the moss? This is your Common Core moment. People, go back to the text. Where was the moss? Rocks and stones, yeah. She peeled it off. Have you done that? Have you peeled moss from a rock? And you know it comes off on a nice great blanket, a great sheet of moss, a thick green moss. And she filled the basket, lined it with one piece of moss and clay. Beneath the moss was clay, the earth itself from the rocks and stones of the well. She reached in with her fingers and she pressed the clay into the sides of the basket and stopped with moss and daubed with clay. She took the basket and she plunged it into the well and she pulled it out. And not a drop, not a dribble, not a piece of water. Thank you. Thank you, dear heads. Now I can go back to my mother. Why she wants to go back to the mother, we'll discuss another day. She put the basket down and she said, if I'm to go home, it's time for you to go home, my friends. Back to your well. And she picked them up. Sploosh! 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 Down they went, down, 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 into the well. And as they dropped out of sight, they exclaimed, Happy Christmas. No, sorry, wait a minute. She heard them exclaim as they dropped out of sight. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I say, her mouth was filled with words of kindness. Now, whenever she opens her lips to speak, let a ruby, a diamond, and a pearl fall from her lips. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I say, she kindly combed our hair. Now, whenever she combs her own hair, let gold coins fall from her head. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I say, if she was beautiful before, let her now be as bright and as shining as the day. Say, brother, say, say. And they were gone. What? So, under her tongue, right around here, a ruby, a diamond, and a pearl. They just popped out of her mouth and they dropped into the well. She said, what a waste. Oh, a ruby, a diamond, and a pearl dropped into the well. She said, well, not this time, I'll tell you. And a ruby, a diamond, and a pearl fell right into her hand. And she said, well, you know about that. Rubies and diamonds and pearls falling on. Once upon a time, in such time there was. It was not your time, it was not my time, it was not Mohegan Sun doesn't know anything about it. I mean, it's just pouring out. She said, thank you, dear head. And she took a comb in her hair, and she combed it. Oh, her own hair. Ka-ching! Shower of gold coins came pouring from her hair. And her face, she looked at her reflection in the water of the well. Son of a gun. Thank you, dear. And she picked up the basket ever so carefully. She ran through the hedge, which, depending upon my mood, is either going to remain open or closed tightly and tie itself together. And she went back to her mother. She said, Mother, look, I did it. I filled the basket with water. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. Ruby's diamonds, pearls. And look, Mother, look at this. Ruby's diamonds and pearls are falling from my mouth now. Look, Mother. And look, gold coins are coming from my hair. And you see, Mother? Showing off, are we? I suppose you think this makes you special. I suppose you think having rubies and diamonds and pearls coming out of your mouth makes you special. look good. We'll have no show-offs here, said the woman, and she took the basket of water, she tossed it out onto the ground. If she'd had some magic beans there, she could have watered them, but that was another story. And the poor girl went to her room to weep and weep. Maybe she wept tears of diamonds, I don't know. Kind of hate to tell the second half of the story. Sometimes I don't, but you know it's coming, right? She had that other daughter. Darling, honey cakes, there's a little something Mother wants you to do. What? I don't want to do it. You make me do everything around here. I don't want to do it. Darling, you're going to go to the well at the end of the world. You're going to take this crystal bucket and you're going to fill it with water. Your sister has just come back. She's got rubies and diamonds and pearls falling out of her mouth. She's got gold coins coming out of her hair. You're going to go to the end of the world and you're going to come back. I don't want to go. Go. I'm going to be hungry. Give me some food. Well, I'll give you cake. Cake and sweet milk. I hate cake. You know I don't like cake. I have that whole glucose thing. Sweet milk and some, I don't know, whatever people eat who have glucose things. She gave her a lovely piece of wafer. And she stomped down the road. Stupid road. She stomped away. Stupid well at the end of the stupid world. She's gonna go there. She came to this place, this one place. Oh my God, this place was like the middle of no place. Really? And she was in this place, and there was this woman, and she was like looking at her. And this woman was like old. No, she was like old. Like she was like old. What are you looking at? Oh, I beg your pardon. I meant to say good afternoon, child. Where are you traveling so far from home? Mind your business, you nosy old bat. I'll tell you what I'm doing. You're old and ugly. Who wants to talk to you? Oh, I'm sorry, my dear. I thought perhaps you might want to pass the time a little bit. Pass the time with you? I don't think so. No, I've got better things to do. By the way, are you hungry? I have some lovely glucose-free wafers here and a glass of sweet milk. Oh, well, I haven't eaten in some time, child. Oh, that's really too bad, you know, because see, these are mine, and they're not yours. And they're really good, too, even though they're glucose-free. Bye. And she left the woman on the road, never stopped to chat. And even these old people, sometimes you talk to them, you know? You never know what they might have to tell you. But she came to the end of the world, and she came to the hedge of thorns, sharp and piercing, twisted and tangled and tied into knots. And if I was in a good mood, I left the hedge open. But we're all adults here. And the hedge was twisted and tangled and tied. The thorns were sharp and piercing. She said, "Open up, let me through." But they twisted and tied all the more. "I need to get through." And she pushed herself through. And the thorns, they scratched and they cut and they ripped her dress to shreds. And she came to the well at the end of the world, and she put in her feet, and up rose the first head. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly, lay me down on the grass to dry. Oh, wash you, comb you? I don't even want to touch you. I don't want to look at you. You're horrible, she said, and she pushed it away with her foot. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly. Oh, you're horrible. Get away, she said. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Last chance. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly, lay me down on the grass to dry, so I may look pretty if someone comes by. Oh, take this for your washing, she said, and she reached for the crystal bucket. Bonk, bonk, bonk. She bonked them on the heads, and down they went, down, down, down. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I say she had no words of kindness in her mouth. Now, whenever she opens her lips to speak, let a toad crawl from her lips. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I say she would not comb our hair. Now, whenever she combs her own hair, let snakes and spiders fall from her head. Picture, if you will, 50 adolescent girls listening to this story. Say, brother, say, what do you say? I'm not saying she was ugly before. I'm just saying now, let her nose grow longer than her arm. Or in Norway, let a fir bush grow from her forehead. Whatever. I don't make them up. A fir bush grow from her forehead. And the girl said, what are you talking about? I think about it for a moment. A frog under her tongue, pushing through a... Stop it! She put her hand... She ran to the hedge. She said, let me out, let me through, I want to go home. We must leave her there. I never liked the end of the story. In the end of the story, she pushes her way through, and she gets home all bloodied and scratched, and she goes home to her mother with tears in her eyes. And a peddler comes by, a prince comes by, and he sees the beautiful girl, and he marries her at once and takes her away. And a peddler comes by who's ugly and old and has moldy hair, and he's smelly, and he says, well, I have a potion here that can remove fir bushes from foreheads. If you marry me, I will give you the potion. So she marries him. I'm never satisfied with that ending. And I often ask kids to come up with a better ending. And my favorite one was the story that the girl sat at the edge of the well, and she cried, and she cried, and she cried, and she thought of all the cruel things she had done in her life, and her tears poured from her eyes, and they poured into the well, and the well overflowed, and the three heads rose up in this great flood of tears, and the flood went through the fields and over the hills until it came to a little house where the woman lived with her two daughters. And the three heads said, your girl is alone behind a hedge of thorns. She is left there, for she has no one to teach her the right way to speak to strangers. Will you go and rescue your daughter? And the mother left the house and came to the middle of no place. And she met the old woman, and the old woman told her how to be a good mother to her children, how to care, how to listen to her children, how to be careful about the things that she said. And she learned the words, and she opened the hedge, and she brought her daughter home. And you may believe that, if you wish. I heard that the first daughter, she set herself up in a nice little condo in Palm Springs, and she writes to them occasionally, not every Christmas, but many Christmases. And she's doing pretty well for herself, and we wish her the best. That's the story of the three heads in the well. I told it to you. Please tell it to somebody else.
Tom Lee, Mary Jo Maychak, Bob Shepard.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Tom Lee.
I've never seen you here before because it's been several years since I...
Oh, really? I come pretty much every year. I actually was here at the first Connecticut Storytelling Festival ever when I was a student here at Connecticut College. So.
Okay, did you learn storytelling at the college?
I didn't. I first was exposed to it. Barbara Reed, who was the founder, I heard her tell stories, and I just kind of put it in the back of my head as a thing that could happen. And years later, I found myself gravitating back to storytelling, and now I tell stories full time.
Full time. I liked the calmness, not the tension. There was no tension in your story.
Well,
It
good.
was really, I strive for that in my storytelling. Just relax.
Yeah, just hanging out. You're just telling a story.
Tell a story.
Yeah.
That was absolutely wonderful. Name that story again?
It's called The Three Heads in the Well. It's an old English folk tale. It dates from around 1600, but it's probably older than that. That's when it was first printed. And it turns up in a couple of different countries, but I know it mostly as an English folk tale.
And tell me, you say you do storytelling full time. How did you get into full time?
Well, let me say this. I spend half my time telling stories, and I spend the other half of my time looking for work. But I perform in schools, I perform in museums, I perform at festivals. Part of the nature of this job is creating your work.
Your story was so cool.
Oh, thank you.
It was just wonderful.
Well, it was a pleasure.
And then talking to the audience in between little lines was wonderful.
Well, just to keep it, absolutely in the moment. Right?
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not pretending to tell a story. I'm not acting like I'm telling a story. I'm telling the story to these people now tonight. So I like to.
You're having a conversation.
Exactly.
In someone's living room.
Exactly.
You just tell the story that way.
That's exactly what I'm striving for, anyway.
Okay, I'm gonna copy some of that stuff.
All right, good. And may I say you look fabulous?
Filled with brilliant storytellers and talented listeners. This is the beginning of the festival. See you all tomorrow morning.
Hi, and welcome to AccessTV.org. I'm your host from Shaping the Next Generation, Naima Jackson. Welcome to AccessTV.org. We're your hosts, Naima Jackson.
And I'm Elijah Williams.
Thank you for tuning in to Shaping the Next Generation. Today's special guest is Ms. Vicki Gallen-Clark.
Ms. Vicki will stop by on the show to talk about her role in the Blue Hills Civic.
Now, if you haven't heard about Blue Hills Civic Association, you should definitely look into it. It's located on Asylum. Now, if you don't know anything about Blue Hills, you should know that Blue Hills Civic Association, they will definitely help you get a step forward in your future. They'll help you figure out what you want to be in the future, because they definitely helped me. I figured out what I want my career to be, I figured out what college I want to go to, and I figured out what I want to major in. Blue Hills helped me because they helped me learn how to write a resume, a cover letter. They prepared me for an interview to get a job. Blue Hills Civic Association is definitely the perfect program for our youth today. Now, thank you for joining us on AccessTV.org. I like AccessTV.org because they offer us highlights on our local community that you don't get from Channel 3 or Fox News. They also gave us highlights from sports like track and field. So thank you so much for joining us. And all the youth out there, you should definitely join us at Access TV and definitely check out Blue Hills Civic Association, because it will help you, it will motivate you to get out there, look into our programs, and it will help you shape your future.